My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. I live in a very big city, and it's a beautiful city, but one of the drawbacks is that it's hard to garden here. There's not a lot of land, not a lot of space. And I love to garden, so I'm always trying to find ways to do that. In the house where I live, we have two different patios. They're small, but kind of urban terraces, you could call them. And one of them, unfortunately, is overshadowed by many tall buildings. It's closer to the street. And so the rays of the sun rarely hit it, maybe just for 1 hour or 2 hours each morning. However, the other patio is on the top of the building. And so it's receiving sun practically the entire day. And certainly when the sun is at its strongest, at its apex. Well, as you can imagine, that patio is lush with vegetation and flowers, whereas the other patio is usually barely surviving. We joke that that lower terrace, the one cast in shadows all day long, it's where plants go to die. And we've had plenty of unsuccessful campaigns trying to put in plants there, but normally they wither and die for lack of light. Light is a life-giving source. In a sense, all of creation on this earth, looks to the sun as its life-giving principle. Now, maybe there's a few exceptions. We can think of those fish that live in the darkest depths of the ocean, or, bats deep in the recesses of caves. But in general, the sun shines and shines, and we depend on that light, on that warmth. The sun shines, and that's what it does, and it reaches everything, as long as something doesn't get in the way. It's indiscriminate in its treatment. The same goes with rain. Rain just falls. It falls when it will, where it will. As long as the plants are not covered, they're going to get it. They're going to get that water, and boy, do they love it. Plants drink up the water from the skies, and they need it. Rain, sun, these are the life-giving elements of nature, we could say. Water, light. We need these things to survive and to thrive. And nature, it doesn't treat people differently. It's indiscriminate. Everyone in a given place gets the same snowstorm. Everyone gets the same beautiful summer day. We could say that nature is the great equalizer. That's on the physical plane. But what about the spiritual plane? Jesus, today, in our time of prayer, we want to use this imagery of nature as a metaphor to talk about your Heavenly Father. This is what you do when you teach the disciples. Jesus said to his disciples, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your heavenly Father, for he makes his sun rise on the bad and the good, and causes rain to fall on the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what recompense will you have? Do not the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brothers only, what is unusual about that? Do not the pagans do the same? So be perfect, just as your heavenly Father is perfect. Jesus, when you begin this teaching of yours, you refer to that saying, love your neighbor, hate your enemy. And at first I thought, well, maybe that's in the Torah somewhere, but it's not. That phrase, love your neighbor, hate your enemy, is not part of the Jewish tradition. The Torah says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't contain any commandment to hate your enemy. Jesus, you must be contradicting something that was popular at the time, a popular adage among the Jewish zealots. Love your neighbor, hate your enemy. Like, I don't know, love your fellow Jew, your neighbor, your brother in the faith, but hate the Romans, right, those who persecute us. And we hear that and we think, well, that's an ancient expression. But that kind of faction mentality is still very much alive today. It's something we might read today, for example, in social media and the like. We live in a very polarized society. So often among our peers out on the street, if somebody disagrees with you, if somebody holds a contrary opinion to you, they're seen as your enemies. I think it's incredible that the term bigot is thrown around with such ease. It's said so often of people, which is such a strong term to call anybody that. And that way of dealing with each other, it raises suspicions among us. It leads us to be constantly questioning the good faith of one another. In our dealings with each other, it's so easy to make distinctions and to shun or to shut out certain individuals or types of people. I mean, wouldn't it be funny if the sun suddenly decided to only shine on certain people? Or if the rain only pursued certain individuals? I mean, it's true. Some people do seem to walk with a rainstorm over their head, like that character in the new movie Encanto. I think her name was Tia Pepa. Right? She always has kind of a storm around her. But that's not how nature works. And that's not how you work, Jesus. You, God, you are love. Loving is all you do. In a sense, it's all you're capable of, just like the sun is only capable of shining, and it shines everywhere, all the time, on all things, on all people. You, Jesus, look at each one of us with immense love, with unconditional love. Your charity is perfect. It's everywhere and for everyone. And so when you say be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect, you're referring to your heavenly Father's love, to his way of loving. And this is the higher ground, we could say, the higher way of living, not as the pagans live, not in that selfish way of loving. Because if we only greet our brothers, only those with whom we share, for example, our faith or our way of seeing things or our preferences, what's unusual about that? Be perfect. Love as the Father loves. Shine as the sun shines. You ask us to do this, Jesus, and it's hard because we have our own experience of struggling to love those we find difficult, of struggling to be charitable with those who persecute us, with those who do not reciprocate our love. We struggle to love those we find disagreeable. Well, look to Jesus. We look to you, Jesus. We look to your Sacred Heart. This is the month of June. We will be celebrating the feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And what a beautiful way for us to pray is to look at his heart, to meditate on his heart, a heart in which everybody fits, everybody is loved. Maybe we can think about those people in our own life and ask this question: who do I need to treat differently? We can turn to Our Lady, Mother of Fair Love, that mother with a pure heart. We also want to have a pure heart, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, that heart that is open and shining on everyone. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you've communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help in putting them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.